Hi there. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody at WOFFF for asking me and inviting me to take part in this showing of EDEK and to just answer a few questions and give you a very brief introduction. I think I have to say that it was going to the festival, the Women's Over 50 Film Festival, was actually probably one of the highlights of when we showed EDEK. The questions that came back in the Q&A were amongst the most intriguing and interesting that I think I had from most festivals. So thank you very much, and I really do appreciate your constant interest and enthusiasm for this particular project. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions that have come from WOFFF as a kind of means of introduction. So let me have a look through some of the questions. So you might ask me what attracted me to this story of a kind of an 85-year-old white woman and a US American rapper, a black American rapper, to make a film together about a particular story. And it's a really interesting question because it was something that hadn't been done before. And it intrigued me on a number of levels. First of all, there was a musical level because I've been really intrigued and enthusiastic about hip-hop. Amongst other music, I love most music, but hip-hop as well, I think, has been fascinating. I love people like Kendrick Lamar and Frank Ocean and people like that because I love the idea of merging styles and taking elements and influences from all sorts of places, but then owning it and making it one's own. I also found I was quite intrigued by the fact that that music kind of originates in ghettos as well. And my original working title for this film was Ghetto to Ghetto, because obviously from Janine's experience in Warsaw and in the ghetto there, and then using a music that emanated from a completely different type of ghetto, but from, almost a result of another type of prejudice and hatred and reaction and response. And this response through activism, but activism through music, I found really intriguing, and I wanted to explore kind of what relationship there were there, and almost the common denominators between races, cultures, who we are, ethnicities, and to see what kind of we have in common when facing outside prejudice, but kind of trying to turn it into an optimistic and activist way of making things better, and especially reaching younger audiences who are the ones who have the world in their hands and are going to shape the future, as we're already seeing, starting to shape the future. And I think that that's part of the kind of meaning behind this film, is to inspire and to open people's minds, young minds, and to tell them that actually every single person, every single one of them can make a difference and can make an impact on other people's lives. So I kind of felt there was almost a balance there between Janine and Kapu, and I loved the fact of kind of bringing them together and helping them almost, explore each other's lives and seeing how their individual experience related to their own. So I think that was fascinating. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of reach younger audiences who perhaps don't necessarily see too many people outside of their own communities, and get across the idea that actually the more we interact, the more we connect, the more we understand, and the more we realise that each other can enrich our own lives, whether that's through art, music, film, or just on a daily basis. The music, I've kind of touched on why the music was so central to the film. On one level as well, I kind of realised I wanted to talk to a younger audience as well, who kind of may, I wanted to talk in their own vocabulary to them, to a degree. I can't, I'm not a younger person, I'm not a teenager, so therefore I'm always going to be aloof from that. But I wanted to help find people who perhaps could bring this story to life through music. And I think that music is such a powerful communication tool. Music is a unifier, and it's interesting that probably music is the least racist thing on earth. I think probably music and sport, because it's very democratic, and if you even look back through history, the roots of modern music are different cultures coming together and blending and playing and not becoming homogenous, but actually bringing what each other does best and each other's talents. Look at jazz. Jazz is African rhythms and East European melodies originally. And if you look back to the jazz bands of the 30s and the 20s, they were integrated before integration was a popular concept. It's really interesting that those were the guys who were basically saying, we're not going to accept integration on both sides, and we just want to work with great talented people and put it together. And it doesn't mean that we and as I said before, that everybody is homogenous. It's a case of saying, somebody is different to me, but I love their difference because you complete me. And that's what we do as a populations in the world. We complete each other. We add to each other's lives. And I certainly feel that music was something I really, really wanted to be central to this film. And also musically, it's interesting because with other films about the Holocaust or people who've suffered in the Holocaust or survivors, music has been important as well. One only has to look at Schindler's List and we know the music there. And it's wonderful, but it comes from the same root. I was quite determined that no violins would be hurt in this process. I didn't want to use the typical music that one might associate with the Holocaust or East Europe, violins, klezmer, Roma music, anything like that. I wanted to go elsewhere as far as possible for my reference points. But again, there had to be some sort of link. It wasn't just gratuitous either. There was a reason. And if one looks at the roots of hip-hop, there is a kind of resonance with even Janine's story. I also love the fact that when I got to know Janine even before, she has a passion for music. Her particular love is for opera and classical music, but she has an appreciation, a love for music, which often is a thing that isn't spoken about when she talks to youngsters or in documentaries or anything that is made about her, because first and foremost it will be about the awful things that she has lived through and been witness to. But I don't know why, it just touched me that in amongst all that there was a beauty, a love and a passion for music that I wanted to bring to the fore and kind of celebrate. So it just felt to me that if I was going to make a film about Janine, music had to be central to it. One of the other questions from WOFFF that has come through is about the relationships and the exchanges between the cast members, and I think that's been fascinating actually, because there are three cast members. There's Janine, there is Kapu, and there is also Isabel, who plays kind of young Janine, in a roundabout way, in a more symbolic way. And it's been really interesting when they've met and they've been together. I found one of the most fascinating points was when Janine and Kapu first met, and Janine was discussing the civil rights movement in America with Kapu, and he kind of turned around to her and said, you're teaching me about my heritage, which I didn't know, some things which I didn't know. You know more about the civil rights movement than even I knew. And he found it fascinating. She was kind of, even opening up some experiences of African-American history and heritage for him because of her deep interest in this as well. And I think I found one of the first really interesting things. Then, of course, there was the musical kind of relationship because initially Janine hadn't necessarily known that much hip hop, but Kapoor kind of introduced her to some of the artists from his circle and the music he was listening to. And again, being so open-minded, even at 85, Janine actually started to develop an ear for hip hop as well through Kapoor. And they've been together talking and on stage a few times and in front of the cameras and on TV. And there is a real genuine affection between Kapoor and Janine that I think has been quite beautiful, actually, to see. And also, as well, from, it's lovely with Izzy's point of view, again, from being a school child who has kind of studied, learnt a little bit about the Holocaust remotely through the curriculum and being at school, but has always been, has never been in connection with somebody who actually lived through that and taken part in something. And for her, I think what was really fascinating was, not only was this relevant, making her history, her educational lessons relevant and come alive and be present, she was able to empathise because Janine's story was of herself as a young girl and, pretty much the same sort of age as Izzy. And Izzy's been absolutely, whenever all of us met, she's got a whole list of questions that she wants to ask Janine about her life, about her childhood, about her time since. And I find that really exciting and really encouraging. It's funny, but the younger generation, whatever generation letter we're up to now, Generation Z, Generation Z2, whatever, often they get a bad rap, excuse the pun, but they get, people are very, very quick to criticise that generation because they're always on their mobile phones or on the internet or anything, whatever it is. And I have to say that my experience from this film has been enlightening and wonderful because the questions that have arisen have been really intelligent, really interested, and the enthusiasm and the desire and the hunger to want to know more and to apply it to today's society and today's issues, I think has been really, really encouraging. And, I suppose kind of going from today's issues into today's issues, it's funny, but, you make a film or you make a piece of art or a piece of work in one environment at one time, and it has meaning then, and then times change, and the film takes on new meanings, and there are layers that maybe, we didn't even realise existed. And I find at the moment, I look at EDEK, and I look at the film, and I see so many new nuances there on every single level. Obviously, first and foremost, coronavirus and the fact that we've been in lockdown. All of us, the whole world, has been in lockdown, and we are experiencing for a short time and in nowhere near the capacity of fear or loneliness or deprivation that somebody like Janine had when she was a child. But we are getting a tiny glimpse of that, what it is to retreat and to wonder what is out there. And again, I think that allows us to empathise, and there's a message there from the film that I think speaks to us as well, which is we will come through. There is another side, but we have to be aware of what is there. We have to be cautious. We have to be careful. And I think that comes through as well from there. I think it's quite interesting that when I speak to Janine, she gets quite frustrated at having to stay in and shield because her nature is to be out there talking to schools and youth groups and adult groups and anybody out there, talking to them and telling them about her experiences and using those as a kind of guide and warning for the threats of hatred that may be there and cause damage to all of us. So I think in terms of coronavirus, I think this film has kind of added another resonance in a way, just about being there and when things are over, coming out. And what will we do from the experience? So if I look at Janine and other survivors who went through that, and they didn't just leave the experience behind, it changed them, and it could have changed them all for the worse. I don't know how they manage to be so positive, but I take great, I have so much respect for that they come out the other side and become better people. And I think that if we can also take that kind of lesson from there and just say, okay, whatever we're all going through at the moment, how can this make us better? How can it make us kinder? How can it make us more aware? How can we learn to appreciate each other? Because this idea that we are all connected, I think at the end of the film, Janine says, we are all human beings. We are all human beings. And it's together. And we show faces from around the world. And again, at the time, I don't think even I realised how pertinent that was to say, because we are learning now, we are all human beings. And for the first time, in many of our history, we are all connected. We're all facing the same issues, the same challenges. And the other thing I think is that when I look at the story, the other cast member, obviously, who isn't visible, but is probably the most important, is EDEK. EDEK, this young Catholic Polish guy who basically had the courage to stand up and make a stand and do something to help, to save, to make the world better in his own way. I think we only have to look around at everything from whether it's politics, I don't want to get too political, but whether it's some leaders in the world who we need to make a stand against, or whether it's George Floyd or Black Lives Matter or Me Too or anything. Actually, what EDEK teaches us is that each of us has a responsibility at some stage to stand up and be counted and do something. And I think that's probably the message, really, that I kind of want the audience to take away. Speaking of coronavirus, I've been asked how's COVID-19 affected my work? And it's probably not different to a lot of other people within our industry. For me, what I've been kind of doing a lot of the time is writing stuff, and also using my kind of almost my back catalogue of footage that I hadn't necessarily used, outtakes and things like that, to make other films and other videos that might work in public service, things like that. So I've been doing some public service films, some short, and a lot of social content there. So I've been doing that. And actually I've been really busy. So at the beginning I thought, well, okay, this is an opportunity to, maybe work on some of the projects I've been putting off for 20 years. And I haven't had as much time to do that as I thought I would. I'm also in pre-production at the moment for a film which is about trade, about global trade, and it's kind of backed by the Maersk company who I've worked with before. And I kind of have I'm looking forward to this. I'm shooting in a couple of weeks, and it's a musical, actually, or a short musical film about trade, because again, I think I look at what's happening, and there is a great move towards potential isolationism, which after coronavirus, it's very tempting for countries and nations and people to just withdraw into themselves and just say, well, I trust my bubble of people, but I don't trust anybody else, because what are they going to give me? What, are they contagious? Is there a pandemic? Is there an epidemic? And we can see that happening. And I have to say that I do believe in globalism. I do believe that the more we are connected, the better we are. And again, not to eradicate our differences, but to celebrate our differences. And I feel that global trade actually does that. And that's what, getting back to music, that's the thing that has made popular music what it is. So I did find that it was pertinent for me to actually make that film at the moment, which kind of celebrated each other's differences and the fact that actually we do love to wear each other's clothes and listen to each other's music and drive each other's cars, which hopefully will be more carbon neutral than the ones in the past. So I'm making that at the moment. So I'm literally about to go into production. We're in pre-production at the moment, casting, recording. Got some great artists there. And it's different for me because it's not documentary. It's scripted and it's much more set up. And then after that, I have a couple of other things which I'm looking at. One, I would like to do another kind of semi-documentary like EDEK as well. And I also have a project which I'm working on and writing called The Opera Club, which is set in a 1970s comprehensive, and again deals with elements of racism and all sorts of things, poverty and comprehensive school education, all centred around a very unlikely opera club for 14-year-olds. So that's kind of what I'm up to. I've probably spoken for way longer than my allotted time, so I apologise, and I hope that you can edit this judiciously. And all I'd like to say is, please, I hope you enjoy the film. I'm always really interested to hear feedback and to hear what people think. It's really important to me, especially I think in a time like this where we're all kind of in a vacuum and we need the oxygen of each other's opinions. Good or bad, I don't mind. I just learn from all of them. So please, if you have any opinions, anything, let me know your thoughts about the film. And again, thank you to everybody at the Women's Over 50 Film Festival. I really do appreciate all your hard work, all your enthusiasm, and for allowing me to present EDEK. Thank you.